So I got thinking about what is it that makes moms and people in general who they are. And I got thinking it's character. Have you ever met someone, they said, now that is a person of character? Or you see things, I was talking about some of the girls this morning as we were driving in. I says, my daughter and her friend, her roommate, Maddie, hello. We're driving here and I says, that's a character issue. And we're talking about character. So character can be a good thing. It can be a bad thing, right? And so I started thinking, well, what is it that is a common trait within some of the women of the Bible who really live a life of faith, a life that demonstrates something that we can all glean from? And so we started looking at character traits. And then I got thinking, well, character is kind of a big word. I mean, I could say there's a character on that movie, and you guys would be thinking an actor, right? So what is character? So I thought Webster would have some wisdom for me. Here's what Webster says: one of the attributes or features that make up and distinguish an individual. And then the word attribute, since nobody really knows what attribute is anymore, is highlighted. And I thought, well, maybe it'll give me some more. I'll click on that. Here's attribute. Ready? A quality. Character. And then it ended with this phrase: a characteristic ascribed to someone or something. Okay, we're kind of getting there. So I said, well, maybe some smarter people have something else to say here. One source clarifies Christian character as this: a person's character is the sum of his or her disposition, her thoughts, her intentions, her desires, and actions. Finally, someone's given us a definition we can work with. Because sometimes you can have someone who has good character, and they make a really poor decision. Have you ever met someone like that? It's like, listen, I know that's not you, but it doesn't belong. For example, King David. The Bible describes him in 1 Samuel chapter 13, verse 14, as a man after God's own heart. But what does everybody know about King David? He had a fling with a lady named Bathsheba. So what is character? Is these things that we do on a regular basis that defines who we are and the decisions that we make and the actions and our thought processes, because all of that stuff, the sum of those things that tell us what your character is. And so as a pastor, I work with a lot of people, and I'm always having to kind of weigh character and figure out where are these people coming from, because sometimes someone's character is not honest, and they will come and say, hey, I got this great thing for the church. And I'm like, I don't think so. For example, have you ever bought a car lately? Yeah. You got to watch those guys, right? Character. How do you know a politician's lying? Their mouth is moving. Okay. Still, shouldn't be saying these things since we're recording. What does the Bible say about character? Well, we can see character in some of the individuals that we find in Scripture. So let's look at some of these today. We need to have a character that is grounded on faith. A character that is grounded on faith. You see, we begin with faith because the Bible teaches us in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 6, it says this: but without faith, it is impossible to please Him. For he who comes to God must believe that He is, and that He is a rewarder of those who diligently seek Him. See, without faith, it doesn't matter what kind of character you have. Without that faith relationship with God, it doesn't matter. You've missed the boat. You see, unbelievers, have you met an unbeliever that has good character? Yeah. I hear it all the time, but they're such a good person. Yeah, they can be a good person. They can have good character. But what sets a Christian and their character apart, and a non-believer and who has a good character apart, is this: they have a relationship with God that begins in faith. And because it's faith, their character goes so much deeper. Because as a worldly person who does not know Jesus Christ, they can have good character, they can do good stuff, but they still don't see the end result of really what's there. The things that they do, the things that they invest in, these are not spiritual things. These are worldly things. These are good things, but these do not bring glory to God. But a person of faith who has character that engages on the faith level, on the spiritual level. These are people who can have impact for eternity. Character. Faith is what distinguishes the believer from the world. God-honoring character versus simple good character. There's a world of difference. One is earthly, one is eternal. Luke chapter 1, we find our first Bible character. See how I did that? Mary, the mother of Jesus. Mary, the mother of Jesus. In this story, we have an angel who comes to Mary. She's not married yet. See, lots of Marys. She's not married yet. And this angel comes to her and says, hey, listen, you're going to be with child. The Holy Spirit's going to come upon you, right, before you get married. And she's like, I don't think you understand how this works. Guy meets girl, right? This doesn't work that way. And the angel says, actually, it does. With God, anything's possible. And then here is the end. Now, imagine this. If God were to reveal to you something major in life is about to change everything, the entire direction of your life, what is your response? Excuse me, Lord, can we talk? Right? Here was her response after having a conversation saying, I don't think it works this way. And then he says, hey, all things are possible with God. Here's how she responds. This is her heart level. This is an image of her character, her faith in God. Ready? Behold, the maidservant of the Lord. Let it be to me according to your word. And the angel departed. Here's what she's saying. Her character is willing to say, you know what? Hey, God is God. He's in control. I am but a servant of God. What he desires to do in my life, let it be. Faith. Faith in God. Now you got to imagine her faith. Her faith is not necessarily like your faith and my faith. We have a much bigger picture. We have the Old Testament. We have the New Testament. She had what she heard about the Old Testament. It's not like she can open her Bible like, let's see what the angel, let's see, angel. Okay, I'll trust you on this one. Not at all. Faith in God. I will trust God with this. I will trust God. Today we have a whole lot of scripture at our disposal. And the problem with that is we have access to all of this, but we don't spend any time in it. In her age, in her culture, man, when they could hear the teachings of a religious person who would bring truth from Yahweh, they would listen. They would apply. They would live. Today we have access to the scriptures, and we're like, yeah, I put that on a shelf somewhere. If I need it, I know where to find it. We miss out on so much. Mary, she had faith. Here's Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 7. Here's what it says. Blessed is a man who trusts in the Lord, and whose hope is in the Lord. For he shall be like a tree planted by the waters, which spreads out its roots by the river, and will not fear when heat comes. But its leaf will be green, and will not be anxious in the year of drought, nor will cease from yielding fruit. You see, when we learn to trust in God, it doesn't matter what happens in life. When things happen in life, you're simply saying, okay, God, I will trust God. Okay, Lord, I will trust you. Lord, I don't get it. You're about to change the entire direction of my life, but there is trust in that, Lord. Okay, Lord, trust. And when we learn to trust God on this level, no matter what happens, God can bring blessing. Here's the Proverb 3, verse 5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. How much? All, okay. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lead not on your own understanding. What does that mean? It means that you can have an opinion, but if it conflicts with God's opinion, throw it out. Lean not into your own understanding. My understanding might be very simple. My understanding might be it takes me this amount of time to get to this place. But God might have a different story, and I should not get mad when I'm sitting in traffic, because I could be at the front of the traffic in the accident that's causing the traffic. I don't know what God's doing. I'll just trust Him. I'll trust Him. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not into your own understanding. In all your ways. How many ways? All. Some of the ways that I like to do? No, all my ways. I'm just going to trust you, God. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your paths. Now that's an amazing promise. Remember last week we were talking about the Bible and how the Bible's not necessarily a book of rules, but it's a book of promises? Listen, if you will learn to trust God and acknowledge Him in all of your ways, here's His promise. You ready? He shall direct your paths. Faith. God, I can trust you in this. Here's another proverb. For as he thinks in his heart, so is he. Eat and drink, he says to you, but his heart is not with you. Now, what is this talking about? Have you ever met someone who on the outside acted one way, but you knew on the inside they were different? You know what I'm talking about? And you can't quite put your finger on it. You're like, something's just not right here. Or someone says, I believe this, but then you see them living a life that's opposite of what they say they believe. This is saying, hey, it's at the heart level. Mary's life is about to completely change. She can simply be saying, okay, God, whatever you want to do. Or she can be saying, hey, I am your servant. The verbiage is very clear. I am your bondservant, meaning this. I'm yours. Wholly yours. What you choose to do with me is up to you, period. How many of us could really live our lives with that thought process? God, I am wholly yours. Whatever you choose to do, that is your will for my life. I will embrace that. It comes from the heart. It's a heart level thing. You see, when life happens, what do you truly believe about God? Because what you really believe, what you truly believe, not what you say you believe. Have you met some people who say, I believe this, and they do something different? Right? Not what you say you believe, but what you truly believe, that is what will dictate how you will respond to life. Your life choices, how you live the life. What you invest in, the things that you put your time into, and your money, and your passions. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 2 says this, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endures the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. You see, if you really believe that God was in control, that your advocate, Jesus Christ, who sits at the right hand of the Father, was in control, then we would all be willing to say, Lord, here's your servant. What would you have me to do? I'm all in. I'm all yours. What would you have me to do, Lord? So here's a question. We talked about character for the believer and the non-believer. So you got the non-believers got good character. They do good stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. Except they're missing one major piece. It's faith. Because for the believer, we have faith, and that distinguishes us. So here's a question for you. Have you really believed on Jesus Christ? See, there's a lot of people who say, well, I believe in God. Well, that's great. The Bible tells us that Satan himself believes in God. Let me tell you who's not going to be in heaven with us. Have you believed in Jesus Christ? Colossians says this, chapter 1, verse 16. For by him all things were created, that are in heaven, that are on earth, and visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things, how many things? All things were created through him and for him, and he is before all things, and in him all things consist. Let me tell you something about God. He not only created it, he's allowing it to continue to exist. So when we stand before God and something in life has happened that we can't control, we can fight against it, or we can simply say, God, you are in control. You are sovereign. You allow these things to exist. You allow these things to happen. I am nothing more than your servant, Lord, a bondservant. Just do what you will. It doesn't mean that we let the world walk on top of us. It doesn't mean that we give up on living our lives. What it means is this: we learn to surrender every area of our life to God. And if he so chooses to work, yes, Lord. Yes, Lord, because we have faith, we have trust in the Almighty God. Do you believe that God is the creator of all things? Do you believe that God is the sustainer of all things? Then why is it that we panic when life happens? Anybody know anybody that runs from one crazy chaos to the next? Oh, the sky is falling. Oh, did you see the news? Oh, oh. That's not faith. That is not faith. That is not trust. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 25, because of the foolishness of God is wiser than men. Here's what Paul's saying. You fool. But even God's foolishness is wiser than your wiseness. I made up a word. See that? Because the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the weakness of God is stronger than men. He's saying, listen, we got nothing on God. So why do we fight against the flow of things in life? I use the word sovereign. There's a churchy word. Would someone like to stand up and give us a definition of sovereign? I didn't think so. All right, here we go. Sovereign. God is omniscient. Here's another churchy word, meaning all-knowing, okay? I don't expect you to remember omniscient, but you can know this. God is all-knowing. Sovereign, okay? Sovereign means that God is omnipotent, meaning he is all-powerful. Omnipotent. I don't expect you to remember omnipotent, but he is all-powerful. And in your life, when life happens, he is all-powerful. You can trust him. He is omnipresent. That means that God is present everywhere at all times. Get this. He's here right now. He's with you when you're by yourself facing that struggle that you're having. He's with you when you get that phone call. He is with you all the time. Now, I want to put this in contrast for you because some people live their lives in a really strange way. Let me put this in context. We have an enemy. Would anyone like to name him? Satan. Lucifer, the fallen angel guy, right? He is not all-powerful. He is not all-knowing, and he is not all-present, meaning he can't be everywhere at once. He is one created being. When people say, Satan made me do it, really? You're that important? Satan made you do this? He came into you. He is not all-present, but God is. God is. Now, he has a third of the fallen angels out there running around doing his bidding. Absolutely. And I can promise you this. Our church faces spiritual warfare on a regular basis because Satan has sent some of his fallen angels to try to do some chaos in our church family. But you know who's greater than that? God. He's all-powerful. He's all-present, so he's there. He's all-knowing. So faith is the first characteristic. Here's another one. Develop a character of commitment. Commitment. What does this mean? It means you keep your word when at all possible. If you make a commitment that does not discourage you from walking in a relationship with God, if the commitment you make can honor God, use it. Keep it. Develop a character commitment. We have this lady named Hannah in the Bible. And let me kind of give you her story really quickly. 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 10. And she was in bitterness of soul. She was really sad. And prayed to the Lord and wept in anguish. She was really, really, really sad. Then she made a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your maidservant and remember me and not forget your maidservant, but will give your maidservant a male child, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and no razor shall come upon his head. Here's what she's saying. God, if you give me a child, a man-child, a son, I will give him back to you. That is a sacrifice. Imagine, ladies, your firstborn. Doctor says, okay, what do you want to name it? Great. Now, where should we take it to go grow up? What do you mean go grow up? Well, you gave your child away, didn't you? That'd be like heart-wrenching for many of our ladies. Now, for some of our ladies, my wife was adopted. For some of our ladies, it was an amazing opportunity to have a life. And some of you I know are adopted. That's awesome. But imagine saying, God, I'm just going to give my child to you 100%. Here's what Hannah did. I don't have any kids, but if you give me one male child, I'll give it back to you, God. Solely up to you. Now, notice in the time of discouragement, what she did, she went to God. She didn't go to her friends. She didn't go to her family. She went to God. And she laid it all out before God. 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 20. So it came to pass in the process of time that Hannah conceived and bore a son and called his name Samuel, saying, because I have asked for him from the Lord. Now the man Elkanah, and all his house went up to offer to the Lord the yearly sacrifice and his vow. So every year he'd go up to make sacrifice. But Hannah did not go up, for she said to her husband, not until the child is weaned, then I will take him, that he may appear before the Lord and remain there forever. Now, before I keep reading, I want to stop for just a second. You finally had a child, a male child. Daddy's honored, mommy's honored, and mom says, hey, by the way, I gave our kid away. What? You did what? Okay. Here's the faith. So Hannah, her husband, said to her, do what seems best to you. Wait until you have weaned him. There's no question here. Only let the Lord establish his word. Then the women stayed and nursed and her son until she had weaned him. Now when she had weaned him, she took him up with her with 3 bulls, 1 ephah of flour, and a skin of wine, and brought him to the house of the Lord in Shiloh, and the child was young. Then they slaughtered the bull and brought the child to Eli. And she said, O my Lord, as your soul lives, my Lord, I am the woman who stood by you here praying to the Lord. For this child I prayed, and the Lord has granted me my petition, which I asked of him. Therefore I also have lent him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he shall be lent to the Lord. How long? As long as he lives. So they worshiped the Lord there. You see, Hannah was true to her word. She kept her commitment, especially to God. She kept her promise. She dedicated Samuel to the Lord for as long as he lived. You see, a promise or an oath made to God should always be kept, no matter how difficult it may be. God, if you do this, then this. Do you mean it? Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verse 4, when you make a vow to God, do not delay to pay it, for he has no pleasure in the fools. Pay what you have vowed. Better not to vow than to vow and not pay. Whoa. God's saying, I'd rather you not make that promise if you're not going to keep it. When a promise is made to others, we should fully intend on fulfilling it. James chapter 5, verse 12. But above all, my brethren, do not swear, neither by heaven nor by earth, or with any other oath. But let your yes be yes, and your no be no, lest you fall into judgment. You know, often people make promises with no intention of keeping the promise. When we say something, we should mean it. I see parents all the time threatening to kill their children. And I think to myself, but you can't. It's illegal. You can't do that. All right? You can do a lot of things to your kids, but you can't kill them. Apparently, you're not supposed to do that. When we say stuff, we should mean it. You know, if you keep making commitments or promises or talk about stuff, well, I'm going to do this, but you really never follow through, at some point, that becomes your character. Hey, I'll take care of that. Yeah, I'll take care of that. And I'll take care of that. But you never have taken care of anything. Your character is important. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. The reason saying you shouldn't be making an oath on all these things is because people shouldn't need an oath. Nowadays, do you buy a house without signing paperwork? You realize that it used to be like it was a handshake? And now you got to make sure all the documents are in place so that you don't get scammed. Why? Because there are a lot of people out there who say a lot of things and they don't mean any of it. But for the Christian, our yes should be yes and our no should be no. Have a character that spiritually invests in your circle of influence. Have a character that spiritually invests in your circle of influence. You know people that I will never know. You know people that the person sitting next to you will never know. That is your circle. And God has given you that circle of influence for a reason. What are you doing with it? You see, every one of us will be given opportunities that no one else in this room will have. What will you do with that opportunity? Invest. 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 Paul, the Apostle Paul, desired to take the gospel to Asia Minor. And in Acts chapter 16, verse 6, the Bible tells us that they were forbidden by the Holy Spirit to preach the word in Asia. Now, wait a minute. I want to do a good thing here. I want to take the gospel to Asia. And the Holy Spirit's going, no. But really, we want to go to Asia. No. Okay, fine. Instead, the Holy Spirit guided them to Macedonia. Acts chapter 16, verse 9 now. And a vision appeared to Paul in the night. A man of Macedonia stood and pleaded with him, saying, "Come over to Macedonia and help us." Now, after he had seen the vision, immediately he sought to go to Macedonia, concluding that the Lord had called us to preach the gospel to them. So it is in Macedonia that we are introduced to another lady named Lydia. She's a successful businesswoman. And there are only 2 references in all of Scripture to Lydia by name. Acts chapter 16, verse 11. We have Paul and his team. You got Silas, Timothy, Luke. They picked him up in Troas. They're all traveling to find their way to Philippi, which is in Macedonia. And from there to Philippi, which is the foremost city of the part of Macedonia, a colony. And we were staying in that city for some days. And on the Sabbath day, we went out of the city to the riverside where prayer was customarily made. And we sat down and spoke to the women who met there. Now, a certain woman named Lydia heard us. She was a seller of purple from the city of Thyatira, who worshipped God. The Lord opened her heart to heed the things spoken by Paul. And when she and her household were baptized, she begged us, saying, "If you have judged me to be faithful to the Lord, come to my house and stay." So she persuaded us. She's a businesswoman saying, "Hey, come and stay and use my house." In fact, later we find out that the church of Philippi began right there in her home. Come and use my place of residence here in Philippi. She's a trader of purple. From where? From a city in Asia. Interesting. Now, there were many worshipers of God who had not heard the gospel yet. There were worshipers who worshiped the God of Israel, but at this point, they had not heard about Jesus Christ yet. And this was the message that Paul and his team was going to bring to Asia, but was told they couldn't. So they took it to Philippi instead. And so you have worshipers who are out there doing prayers, and they're praying in Old Testament way. And so they hadn't heard about Jesus yet. And so they bring the message of Jesus Christ, and she immediately, God opened her heart, and she believed. In fact, Lydia is the first documented person to believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. A woman. Why would God do things this way? Because he's smarter than us. All right. Now, immediately Lydia, a businesswoman who is extremely successful, desires to support Paul's ministry team. She persuades them, meaning, hey, I'm not taking no for an answer. You're going to use my space. As a businesswoman, no doubt, she would not take no for an answer. Can you imagine a successful business person saying, "Can I have that gospel, please? I'd like to go sell this to some folks." And when I say sell, I mean like actually tell it passionately to others. Of interest is this: Paul desired to take the gospel to Asia Minor, but was led to Macedonia, where the first convert, an influential businesswoman who is from Asia Minor, puts her faith and trust in Jesus Christ. And here's an interesting thing about this entire story. I can't connect the dots for you. The Bible doesn't tell us this explicitly, okay? I'm just connecting the dots based on, kind of what we're seeing here in the passage. In Revelation chapter 2, verse 18, the Bible talks about 7 churches. And to the angel of the church in Thyatira, write. Wait, how did that church get there? Paul never went there. Where was she from? There. What do you think she did? I believe she went back to her hometown. And she declared the gospel of Jesus Christ, so much so there's a major church there, a church that is literally mentioned in the book of Revelation as one of the 7 churches. These things say to the Son of God, who has eyes like a flame of fire and his feet like fine brass, I know your works, love, service, faith, and your patience. And as for your works, the last are more than the first. Here's what we learn about this church that I believe she helped establish. There's a lot of good stuff happening there. Problem is they had some bad stuff too. And then he closes out that passage saying, hey, nevertheless, I have a few things against you. And he's going to start talking about that. But how did the gospel get to Asia if Paul wasn't told he could go there? I believe that there's a businesswoman who had some influence. You know, historians point out this, that in Thyatira, that it's known for its trade guilds. Now, if you don't know trade guild, think of it this way. It's basically an association of craftsmen or merchants who had considerable authority or influence. We have all kinds of guilds right now in our society, and you could be part of this guild and this trade and that trade, and people join these little associations, if you will, because they have some influence or they have some way of helping to move and shake some things. She was part of these, and she had great influence. In fact, among the artisans' guilds that were there were 2 that were most powerful. You had the Guild of Coppersmiths, and you had the Guild of Dyers. What did she sell in Philippi? Purple dye. Okay, so she's part of one of the most influential guilds there in that town. Why? Because the dye that she had came from a very special root that you could only get there. Everyone else, purple dye came from fish. That's nice fish you have on your clothing. What do I smell? I smell fish. No, she had a specialized dye that they were known for, they were famous for. She was a seller of purple, which means the whole world knew I can get the best purple dye from this place, and she was part of that guild. That's why she's described as a businesswoman of influence. Acts chapter 16, verse 37. But Paul said to them, they'd just been beat up and thrown in prison. They have beaten us openly, uncondemned Romans, and have thrown us into prison. He just threw out a threat. And now they do put us out to society, or secretly. No, indeed. Let them come themselves and get us out. He's calling out the people who put him in prison, the leaders. And the officers told these words to the magistrates, and they were afraid when they heard that they were Romans. Then they came and pleaded with them and brought them out and asked them to depart from the city. So they went out of the prison and entered the house of Lydia. There she is again. And when they had seen the brethren, they encouraged them and departed. You see, Lydia had opened her home, and Paul and his team were able to use her home to invest in God's work. You see, a person of character is someone who can develop a character that invests in spiritual opportunity in their sphere of influence, and she did. And you can as well. Have you ever tried to go to a foreign country in the last couple of years without a passport? Doesn't work. I like to describe sharing your faith as a passport. You see, I can walk up to a stranger on the street and I could try to share the gospel of Jesus Christ, and they might be willing to hear me. But if their best friend walks up and shares the gospel of Jesus Christ, they're going to be a lot more open to that message. Passport. You see, God has given you people in your realm of influence, and He's given them to you for a reason. And so a godly character seeks to develop a way in which you can share your faith in that circle of influence. That is character. Character that's influenced by faith. Finally, a character that's steadfast in adversity. Has anyone ever had a hard time before? Nobody? Okay, good. We're good here. I'll close the sermon now. Many of us, for the sake of time, we know the story of Esther, right? Esther? Okay, you got the lady. She's called in, basically forced to become the bride of the king. Then they find out that this guy's trying to kill her entire lineage, all Jews, including her and Mordecai and others that she would know. Esther, she's been taken from her home to wed the king. They're going to fast forward now. There's a plot to kill the Jews. Esther's asked to petition the king. Here's the problem. She has not been called before the king. If she goes before the king without being called before the king, she can be put to death. All the king's servants and the people of the king's province know that any man or woman who goes into the inner court to the king who has not been called, he has put one law, put all to death, except the one to whom the king holds out the golden scepter, that he may live. Yet I myself have not been called to go into the king these 30 days. Fast forwarding verse 13. And Mordecai told them to answer Esther, do not think in your heart that you will escape in the king's palace or any more than all the other Jews. For if you remain completely silent at this time, relief and deliverance will rise from the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. Yet who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Then Esther told them to reply to Mordecai, go, gather all the Jews who are present in Shushan and fast for me. Neither eat nor drink these 3 days, night or day. My maidservants and I will fast likewise, and so I will go to the king, which is against the law. And if I perish, I perish. Can we go full circle for just a moment? Our character must be built on faith. If I perish, I perish. That is character. That is character. She stepped out on faith. She risked death, but yet God brought favor. Now it happened in the third day that Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the king's palace across from the king's house, while the king sat on his royal throne in the royal house facing the entrance of the house. So it was when the king saw Queen Esther standing in the court that she found favor in his sight. And I believe it's not just she found favor, God had favor because she stepped out on faith. She found favor in his sight, and the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand, and Esther went near and touched the top of the scepter. You see, like Esther, you and I face opportunities every single day, and we could cower in place and be afraid of what people might think of us. If we say something in this circumstance, people might judge us, people might view us as weird or strange. But you know what God can do? God can bring favor. God's given you a circle of influence. What will you do with it? God's given you ears who will hear. You don't know who's going to hear your message, but God does. Just like when Paul and his team arrives there in Philippi, they're sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ, and somebody overhears it, and they take action because the Holy Spirit opens their heart to it. You don't know what God can do with your life unless you're willing to step out on faith and speak truth. Speak the love of Jesus Christ. Character. Godly character doesn't hide behind a computer screen. Godly character doesn't hide behind, well, it's the rules. Character of God says, you know, I'm willing to step on a faith and to have this spiritual conversation. I don't care what the world thinks, because it's all going to end anyways. If I perish, I perish. If they judge me, they judge me. If they don't like me anymore, they don't like me anymore. But you know what? I'm going to still step out on faith, and that is character. What kind of character will you have? What kind of character do you have? When people look at your life, do they see a good person, or do they see a man or a woman of God? That is the question. Because if you are saved, you have been bought and paid for, you belong to the Almighty God. So let's start living like it.